fun NLL trade deadline. Some things we expected, other things we didn't, and then breaking news about 5 hours after the deadline. We'll get into it all on this week's Off the Crossbar podcast. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Teddy Jenner. You can find me on Twitter at Teddy Jenner. The man next to me, Pat Gregoire. You can find him at Pete Greggy. The show is at OTCB_podcast or on the Instas at OTCB Podcast. Great guest this week, the new interim coach of the Rochester Knighthawks, Randy Mearns, a move that came out of complete left field. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody had any radars. Nobody even had any little irons in the fire of this might be happening. Nobody even thought that the first head coach fired would be Mike Hazen. And we'll get into it all this week on the show. But Patty, nice new lid, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve Govett and Charlie Ragusa. Got hooked up with that last week. So
Chucky's working with him?
I think he's doing some projects with
Okay.
with Mr. Govett. But yeah, I speaking of last weekend in Halifax, was a great weekend and a lot of chatter of, okay, what happens here? And if Halifax loses, do they become sellers? If Halifax wins, do they become buyers? If Vegas loses, do they become sellers? Do they become buyers? And kind of all things led to, with Halifax winning and some other teams getting some results, here I am preaching to the choir saying, hey, guys, I don't think it's going to be a very busy trade deadline. We might get a couple of trades here and there. Wasn't the craziest trade deadline we've ever seen, Teddy. Wasn't the quietest either. But I think when it comes to drama, news, the way things unfolded, outside of last year with the Del Bianco trade, this was one of the more memorable trade deadlines, at least I can remember.
Yeah, a lot of kind of mid-tier moves and second-tier moves. No real blockbusters per se, but, we get the Joe Rez move late in the day. The Blaze Reardon one was a bit of a head-scratcher until you kind of find out the reasonings behind the deal. But, prove me wrong, but, would you agree that other than maybe outside the Joe Rez, even that's not what was going the other way, wasn't a real blockbuster? We didn't have any sort of, oh my God, trades, right?
I think so Joe Rez is definitely the biggest name and the biggest impact that goes there, but just with the return for Lucas Nielsen in a second, and it's an expiring contract. So, I don't think we ever really expected a huge splash for a guy like him, just because he's expired, not because first and foremost, I think it's a great trade for both sides. We've been calling for Joe Rez back to Buffalo all season long. Before this season even started, I think we
had the watch on early.
Really early. And so when you think of that, okay, it comes to fruition, because it's funny. I was on with the Loose Mesh guys and it's past the deal. And we mentioned deals could still come through. Just be aware. And we start talking about, Philadelphia makes some moves with Joe Rez isn't there. And, what's the deal? And we're getting talking, and then boom, our phones start blowing up and we start hearing the news that it is done, but there's some things behind the scenes that had to get done. First and foremost, for Steve Dietrich to get this trade done without having to give up a first rounder, massive, absolutely massive. On the flip side, though, for Paul Day to be able to make this deal happen, and sure, he doesn't get the first that everyone wants, he gets Lucas Nielsen. And he gets a guy that was a first round pick, a guy that has championship experience around these guys. And obviously, it is very clear that it was going to take some time for him to become a regular player with the Bandits. He's got that opportunity from day one. He is going to be in that lineup. He's going to get the chance. He's going to play on a young team with some pretty talented players, and it's a big opportunity for him. The other pseudo, or I guess closest thing to a blockbuster trade, and it's a trade that I was shocked that came at the deadline, Teddy. I thought this was going to come at draft day. I thought this was going to come 4 weeks ago. and it's the Casey Wilson trade.
Yeah.
Tyson Bell being involved. That I think you could call that one a blockbuster.
Yeah, I mean, I'll call it a mini blockbuster because we don't really know the status of Casey Wilson and if and when he'll be back this year. You've talked to him, I've talked to him, and I'm sure there's some other people that have had some quick conversations with him. His timeline is still up in the air. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to get back this year. He's trying, but it's one of those situations is if Halifax is making a run, maybe they try and force him back. If they're not making him a run, maybe they shut him down. So, it is a massive move. You throw in one of those first round picks that Halifax had, a conditional second round for 2027. I thought, Sean Williams got what he really could, maybe the best he could have in that trade for Casey Wilson. You get a defender that, is still very serviceable in the National Lacrosse League, plays with an edge. You get a first round pick, you get a conditional second round pick. You continue to build for the future. And then, they make the trade for Marshall King to Vancouver. They get a fourth round pick out of that. Again, another guy we don't really know the status of if and when he'll be playing this year, or it's maybe a year down the road. But I thought Sean Williams did a good job in recouping assets for guys that, weren't going to be playing for him or didn't want to play for him or just were unable to make it work.
Yeah. And I think that's massive. And I think, before we get to that point, I do want to mention as well, they also pick up Zach Young. And I think that's a guy that is going to have a bright future in this league. It's a guy that I think maybe has struggled at some points this year and could use a fresh change. And he goes to a bench that has a lot of familiarity with him. He goes to a team that has a lot of familiarity with him. And I think that's going to be a great opportunity for him. I think him and Bell now automatically inject some stability in that back end. And I know, and I've been on the record saying Landon Kells, the reason why they lost the other night in Halifax wasn't because of Landon Kells, and it wasn't because of the defense. I thought Kells was great, especially early. I thought the defense actually really impressed me, Teddy. But with that being said, that Sean Williams was trying his best to shore up that goaltending situation. And I think when that wasn't the case, he said, okay, let's build up the defense as much as possible. So I thought that was a really great, tidy GMing by him. But I think we have to really consider the work that Sean Williams has done this offseason and this season, considering what he was able to bring in. And the fact you mentioned two players that made it pretty adamant they were not able to play with Las Vegas. He gets 3 first-round draft picks, 2 second-round draft picks, and a Tyson Bell for Jack Hanna and a Casey Wilson, who probably were never going to step on your floor this year.
Yeah.
I'm sure if it's a different situation, you're looking at a better return for those two guys. But all in all, that's a really good return for Sean Williams.
Let's just go through some other of the moves. It all kind of started when Calgary traded Tyler Hendricks to Buffalo in exchange for a 6th-round pick. They removed they moved the practice tag for Hendricks and placed him on the active roster. I don't want to say this is a bit of a steal, but to get Tyler Hendricks for a 6th-round pick, a guy that can play offense, he can play defense, heck, he can even play transition if you want him to. That's a nice piece for the Buffalo Bandits. We talk about the Marshall King and the Casey Wilson trade. Vegas also traded Justin Sykes to Ottawa in exchange for a 4th-round pick. They sent Josh Jackson to the Toronto Rock for Toronto's 3rd-round selection in 2027. You mentioned the Zach Young deal. The Wolves placed Joe Coyle on the active roster. Phil Caputo to the Black Bears for Travis Longboat and a 3rd-round selection. That's an interesting one for the Black Bears because they get another righty that can fit into that offense quite well. Blaze Reardon to the Knighthawks. Joe Rezater to the Bandits. But the team, they didn't do a lot in the trade deadline. Yes, they go out and get Josh Jackson from Vegas. But this Toronto Rock team, Patty, is getting absolutely clobbered by the injury bug. Even more so after this past weekend's game in Vancouver. they lose Robert Hudson and they place him on the injury reserve season ending list. Kobe Hansler, who they had signed to the practice roster, is on the injured reserve season ending list. Like, things just keep going bad to worse for the Toronto Rock, but they keep finding ways to win. Were you surprised that Jamie Dowd didn't try to do more with all the injuries they had?
You know what? I gotta say no. I really didn't think so. I think the move to get a depth piece like Jackson was a great move. I think the fact of the matter is that a lot of their top echelon talent is still there. They still have the Brad Crees of the world. They have the Latrell Harrises of the world, the CJ Kurse, the Mark Matthews. And that's something that last year they didn't have. Their depth was fine. It was their superstars that were getting injured. And I think he is a general manager that has prided himself on organizational depth. And yes, it has been chopped away and chopped away and chopped away. But the reason why he's built this depth through the draft and has had this great back end for many years is for situations like this. Jake Darlison now all of a sudden is going to just have to play a bigger role. We saw, Lucas Huckle come into the lineup. He's obviously now going to have to play a bigger role. So there are going to be guys that are probably playing outside of what their expectations were for the year. But that just also means, okay, bigger role for Cree, bigger role for Latrell, bigger role for Jubenville. That's what's going to be the big tester for me. And we talked about in one of our group chats, like they have no right-handed defenders out there, or left-handed defenders.
Lefty defenders, yeah.
Everyone
they're all young.
On that are all young, and all the righties, all their studs are all righties. But like I said, Latrell Harris can defend on the wrong side.
Doesn't matter what side he's on.
Brad Cree can go on his wrong side. It'll be fine. It might be a little awkward, but they can do it. They have done it. And the thing is, Teddy, is that what Jamie Dawick, I think, has learned about himself over the last couple of seasons now is how important and how valuable first-round draft picks are, that you cannot waste them. And he turned his franchise around like the snap of the fingers with 3 picks last year. Mind you, got very lucky that 3 of those picks went 1, 2, 3. But hey, he got lucky. He made good on it. And he also is going to get lucky this year as well, holding Calgary's first round pick, which could be a first or a second. And he's going to get a great player next year.
Yeah, and plus you still have Ty English coming in from last year's draft. So you got some bodies coming in. Quickly before we get to the Week 15 recap, I want to go back to what you were saying about Vegas and really trying to shore up the goaltending. Do you think any teams were really listening? Like, what would the options have been? Like, outside of Nick Damude and talking with Paul Day, like he said, there was no way they were trading Nick Damude. So where do you think he was trying to look to shore up that spot?
To be quite honest, I think he was leaving no stone unturned, and it doesn't matter if they're answering it or not. I think he went above and beyond, just based off, what I've been hearing, and I know how much they feel like this year is a year that they need to get in the playoffs, and that they believe that this is a group that can make some damage into the playoffs. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he picked up the phone, or when he was in Halifax this weekend, had a conversation about Warren Hill, who's a UFA. I would not be surprised if he calls Rochester and sees if one of those goaltenders are available. Wouldn't be surprised if, talking about Halifax, maybe it's even their other goal. Like, there's other backups in this league. Yeah. Like, I think there literally was no conversation that was going to be a non-starter for him. Sure, yeah, he's not picking up the phone and calling Colorado asking for Dylan Ward. Maybe it's Nathan Whittam.
Asking for Whittam, though.
Yeah, he's picking up the phone, talking to Vancouver, not talking about Christian Del Bianco. Maybe it's O'Toole. I don't know. I just truly believe that goaltender was the number one target, and when he figured out pretty quickly that wasn't going to happen, that was okay, let's address our defense instead. And I want to go to what you mentioned with Paul Day and everything with Nick Damude. And Nick Damoud was on every big board. And I think that's abundantly clear that, at the end of the day, though, Philly was not willing to move that piece. He was still on the big boards because we know that is a position of need and that they are at a surplus where they have 2 goaltenders. If there was a move big enough, I know Paul Day is saying that, they weren't interested in trading him. I think there still would be conversations where he would entertain it. That's what I think. But I don't think they're actively picking up the phone and saying, no, we're going to trade him, right? And I think that's one thing that when you see these big boards, because I see the comments, it's not just what Paul Day was saying. I see comments all the time saying, they're not going to, why would they want to trade him? It's like, well, it's not that they don't, like, Halifax did not want to trade. They did not want to trade Warren Hill, or they did not want to trade Graham Hossack. But they are realistic that with them being UFAs, and if they were to lose that game in Las Vegas, it was not a non-starter that those guys could have got traded. I can tell you that right now. It would have had to been a big asking price, and it probably would have to be a destination where those 2 guys would want to go, but it was a not non-starter. We have to be very, very aware that these GMs are loyal, but they can only be loyal to a fault. At the end of the day, they have to do what's best for their franchise.
All right, so let's get into a quick recap of Week 15, because not a lot of games, but some interesting ones, not to say the least, in Week 15. CJ Kirsten, Talon Rogers light up Vancouver, and the return of Nick Rose pushed the Rock to a huge win over the Warriors. The old man still got it. Stephen Keogh sweeps on repeat, and Halifax got a huge win over Vegas. Jeff Teat and the Black Bears were down 2-0 to the Mammoth, but left Denver with a 10-5 win. Oshawa and Philadelphia traded leads and extended runs, but it was the Firewolves who will hold on for a 13-12 win. And what may have been the final dagger for GM Dan Carey, Calgary doubled up Rochester 14-7 on Sunday. And that leads us to our biggest news of the week, Patty. Screw takeaways. This one caught everybody by surprise. Monday, well after the trade deadline, nobody even heard rumblings, heard rumors, had a bird in the cage saying, hey, you might want to dig into this. But GM Dan Carey relieves head coach Mike Hazen and assistant coach Pat O'Toole, 2 of the longest standing members of Rochester lacrosse, period, are no longer with the team. Our guest this week, Randy Mearns, the interim head coach, will join us. But do you believe that the performance against Calgary was the final nail in the coffin?
I really believe that it was. I think that's a game that they felt they needed to have. They obviously don't feel that it's too far gone, but you go on that 4-game losing skid and it doesn't look good at all. But then you find a way to beat Saskatchewan at home in a game where you didn't lead for a single second. You would think that would propel you. And I even said it. This is a run starter. This is where the championship DVD could start for this group. This is that moment.
Yeah.
The rallying point. And for them to fall flat and not just lose, but look really bad while doing it, only scoring 7 goals. And yeah, I know they got their chances, but that can't be the follow-up performance. And whether it's pressure from ownership from above, whether it's the fact that this is the year for them to get it done, and he just believes there needed to be a change, and maybe the change that he was going to make in trade deadline wasn't a big enough trade or a big enough move, big enough change. And the biggest change that had to be done is the coaching staff. And, it's remarkable that there've been so much conversation about hot seat for certain coaches around this league. And the one that not a lot of us, maybe a little bit of heat under the seat, but I never had this on my bingo card for a mid-season firing for Mike Hazen, one of the top 5 coaches of all time when it comes to wins and what he's done with championships. It's crazy, man. There's parts of me that still doesn't believe that this has even happened.
Yeah, he was originally a Buffalo Bandit as a player, came over in I think 1999-ish as a member of the Rochester Knighthawks, was there until 2007, I think, after they won the championship. Took a couple years away and then was brought in by the OG Knighthawks organization, led them to 3 championships. The team moved, he stayed, has coached 250 games in the National Lacrosse League, multiple-time champion both in the NLL and Man Cups. This one really came out of nowhere for a lot of people, and I think the last time a head coach was fired mid-season was Jeff McComb when he was head coach of the Philadelphia Wings. It's not something we see often. Do you think what does Randy Mearns have to do in these final 7 games to retain that job and not have the interim tag?
I think make the
playoffs.
Or
do you think this is just an interim?
I don't think this is an interim. I think for him to lock in the position for sure, it's probably a run to the Final Four. I think if he makes the playoffs, it's probably okay. We like what we saw. Maybe they interview a couple other people, or if depending on who becomes available, possibly. But I think bar none, it's making the playoffs. And I think it's also like, what culture does he set in? And I don't want to go into too much because who better to explain what he's going to be able to do than himself. And I think what he is going to bring this group is different culture. It's going to be more energy. It's going to be that player coach mentality. It's going to be the relationships that he's going to build. And I think it's a change of pace from Hazen. I think it's a very bold move because, Randy's your guy, but is this the move that you want to make? And kudos for Dan Carey and Seneca Nation for making this move after talking to Randy. I feel like he's going to do really, really well with this group. And I'm not just saying it because he's our guest this week, but he had me believing, and I know he's going to have that locker room believing. And sometimes a message gets stale, and maybe that's the case, but I can tell you this, Teddy, Mike Hazen and Pat O'Toole are not going to be waiting around for a job very long this summer. They'll get hired pretty quickly. And there's going to be, I think, teams that maybe make a move that they weren't expecting to maybe fire a coach this year. But because now Hazen becomes available, they might say, listen, we got to jump on this and give him a shot here.
All right, let's jump into our mailbag this week. No hot takes because we've been giving them all. Patty was given a ton on the Loose Mesh Trade Deadline show. Shout out to yourself, Dawson, and Frick for running that. It's not easy. We all know how deadlines go. But shout out to the 3 of you guys who just kept everything entertaining on what was an entertaining and interesting trade deadline day. So let's get to the mailbag because we know we have a lot of questions from the fallout of Monday.
You've got mail.
Let's go to Dale in Saskatoon first. Were you surprised by any teams not making moves at the deadline? And I want to start, Patty, by saying, I know how trade deadlines work. And we kind of talked about it with the whole Nick Damoud thing. And a lot of it is hearsay. And a lot of it is, this team could use this guy. And this guy's on an expiring contract. So this team could use that guy. And this guy's not going to be with them very longer. The fact that, those guys, and especially Frick and Dawson, were talking about, Corey Small or Connor Robinson being on the move. I don't think those guys were ever going to be on the move. Maybe Corey Small to an Eastern team. I don't think Connor Robinson was going anywhere. People will probably look at, why didn't San Diego make any moves and the way things are going? Honestly, I just don't know if San Diego has pieces, one, that they'd be willing to part with, or two, that teams would really need at this point in time. So I know a lot of people are maybe surprised San Diego didn't make any moves. I actually wasn't surprised that Pat Merrill didn't make any moves. That's still a very young and quality lacrosse team. They're just going through a tough stretch right now. I honestly think that Toronto not making more moves was the one that stood out to me more than anything, but you kind of refuted that by saying, just injuries happen. Jamie Dow's protecting his first round picks. They got a lot of guys coming in next year. So honestly, I other than some major moves that could have happened, I was kind of happy with how the deadline played out.
I think the big ones, and I know there was some discussions out there about Saskatchewan making moves, bringing in Graham Hossack, and I know we talked about how great that would be.
Yeah.
Listen, Derek Keenan was in the Bahamas sipping on a Mai Tai on the beach. He was not picking up his phone. He is a guy that came into this year saying, I like my group, minimal change, preaches the culture and the chemistry that is built. That is what makes them so special. So wasn't surprised with them. Oshawa, maybe, but after all indications, when it comes to, Kyle Rubish, he wants to be a Firewolf. He wants to stay there. And I don't think there was a spot where he felt like he wanted to be a rental piece. Like he wanted to sign back. And I think probably general managers knew that, and they weren't willing to part with the pieces. So not surprised there. I think San Diego initially I was, but you've kind of leaned me towards saying like, no, not really. I'd say the team that I was surprised with was Colorado not making any moves. And the reason why I say that is, they're dealing with some injuries. Thomas Vela didn't play the other night, and watching that offense without him, man, they look completely different. They look way, way different. And that just goes to show you how important those crasher and bangers are, and how vital you need guys to create space for guys like Andrew Q. We did see them, though, make some moves with free agency and bringing in Aaron Woods back onto that roster. And then Nathan Grennan, again, gets another chance with an NLL team. So, awesome to see him back in the league. So they did make moves, but I thought maybe they would have made a splash for one of those lefties that could have been out there. But again, just because a move wasn't made, Pat Coyle, obviously, and Brad Self were on the phones trying to make it work. It obviously didn't come to fruition. So instead, they moved to the street free agent line of work.
Sometimes I forget. Buffalo Sports Collective, kind of asking a similar question. Is there a trade that didn't happen that you felt was a near lock to get done?
Not really. Not really. I mean, there was rumblings out there of some of these rumors that were really close to happening. I don't know if those were really true or if that was just kind of chatter. I guess what I will say, I was surprised Rochester didn't move on from another lefty. That will be my answer.
Yeah, okay.
Because you bring in Blaze Reardon, and I don't know what the health status is of Brad McCulley, but now all of a sudden you've got McCombie, you've got Hogg, you got Fields, you bring in Blaze and then McCulley. So you've got 5 lefties there. Kind of jogged like logjam. We'll hear from Randy Mearns talking about they're thinking of different floor rotations on maybe they go to more of a righty set. Maybe they stick with the 4 lefty sets. So that would be the one move that I kind of was expecting.
Yeah.
Was there a move on the table that maybe you heard or that you thought maybe?
The one, and you and I kind of talked about this, and it was, I kind of thought with the injury to Ian McKay and his unknown status, and just how, Clay Scanlon has been great, hasn't been outstanding. I kind of thought, being the big old Buffalo Bandits and how they play and things like that, I kind of thought they might try and go and get Dawson Thied out of Oshawa. And I posed the question to you once, maybe Chugger did call Glenn Clark and say, hey, what are you wanting for Thied? I know this is what you got for traded for him from Halifax. What can we do? And maybe there wasn't a deal to be done. And so that's, in my opinion, maybe that's why they went out and got Tyler Hendricks. Not as big and imposing as a Tanner or as a Dawson Thied. I've been watching Tanner Thied fights on Lax Tillingham, so that's why that name was in my brain. They didn't go get Dawson Thied, So maybe it allowed them to go get Tyler Hendricks. Again, not as big as imposing, but still a big body that can move bodies, create space, can play a little O, can play some two-way if you need him to. So I almost kind of feel like that's like a plan B or backup plan. So that was only the one that I kind of thought. The Rez deal ended up happening. I know some people wanted Buffalo in our mailbag. Some people are asking Marco Selleck saying, were you surprised Dougie didn't go to Buffalo? And I think, honestly, if Buffalo's going to go and get a veteran goalie, it's going to be in the offseason once they find out the status of Matt Vince, what he plans to do. So yeah, the Dawson Deed thing was just kind of a wish list almost. And we don't really have any idea if that trade was going to happen. But when I saw the Hendricks deal made, I thought, okay, maybe this is just plan A didn't fall out and going and get Theater. And so plan B, let's go get someone else that's a big body size that's not going to cost a lot. Like I said, they gave him a 6th rounder for Tyler Hendricks. So yeah, that was kind of the one that stood out in my mind. Rebtail wants to know whose trade will make the biggest impact long term, and mine is still going to be Jack Hanna. It wasn't a trade deadline deal. This was done many weeks ago, but I still think that this deal is going to have the biggest impact long term. But twofold: if and when Casey Wilson is healthy, he turns out to be the player we all thought he was, I think that's going to be huge for the Halifax Thunderbirds. But Marshall King in Vancouver, if they can get him back to, Marshall King from 3 years ago, before he broke his hand in that Mann Cup when he was playing just some of his best lacrosse, I think that can long-term be a massive move for the Vancouver Warriors.
Yeah, I think that was, well, it was the first deal and it kind of got lost in the shuffle, to be quite honest. And I do think that this is a great move. And all the talk about Tyler Pace, I think everyone just assumed that was going to be the move. And you kind of throw it out there and saying like, I don't know if they really need a guy like Pace, but I agreed. But I also didn't think what they had right now is what is going to work for them, or if there is an injury. I mean, this is a team that is in trouble, and you go out and you get Marshall King, a guy that's been sitting out, a guy that obviously has been through some really tough times, dealing with the loss of his wife and bad injuries, unlucky injuries, and for him to come back, home, play with his brother, play with a championship team. He could probably ease his way into this lineup whenever he's ready. I think this could be a gigantic, not just for this year, but for going forward as well. Because let's not forget, I know he's playing like he can play forever, but Curtis Dixon eventually at some point has to retire, whenever that may be. So they're going to need someone to fill some of those voids later down the road. But an awesome story. It was a great way to start the free agency, no doubt about it. Or trade deadline.
A lot of other ones kind of revolving around who won the trade deadline and things like that, but we kind of discussed much of that. But I got one more before you get to Jacobs. Rob Josie, shout out Rob Josie, by the way, sending me the latest edition of the Halifax Thunderbirds comic. I appreciate you doing that, and everyone that's been sending me the comics. Thank you for supporting this nerd. But Josie wants to know.
Hold on.
What? Oh God. How many do you have?
I was going to give you some.
I'll take it. I'll bring you a Vancouver one. You give me a Halifax one.
That's a good trade. Okay. Perfect.
Done deal. One of the moves that we didn't talk about that kind of was a fallout of the trade deadline was the Buffalo Bandits releasing Ryan Benesh. And Rob Josie wants to know, do you think Benny finds a team, or is this it?
Oh man, this one's tough. This is really tough. And it's unfortunate because, everyone always, when he signed, everyone was talking about what an opportunity for him to win a championship. And unfortunately, with some injuries and just the way that I think Buffalo is moving, that they're probably going to want to roll with 4 righties and 3 lefties. It looks like he's probably on the outside looking in. Maybe he would have been able to get into a couple of games while Ian McKay is, still nursing that injury, or if they choose to maybe run Ian McKay out the back door. What I think this is, and again, I haven't had any of these conversations with Benny, haven't had the conversations with Chugger, but maybe this is an opportunity where they said, okay, well, we don't really see a spot for you. We'd have to put you on practice roster. I don't know how much you're going to get in. Here's your opportunity to go somewhere else. Now, the question is there somewhere else? Colorado, I know there was some chatter about that because of the injury to the lefty, but a team that I would like to maybe see, and I don't know if it would happen, but like Georgia. Why not Georgia? Why not Georgia? Why not put a little more veteran leadership on that team? A guy that can score the ball. Like, that would be the only team that I could see it, unless it's a team that's already out of the hunt and just are looking for bodies. I hope he lands somewhere because he's so damn close to climbing up that all-time leaderboard. The only team in the hunt that could possibly get him a championship is Georgia, that I think that would take him. If not, maybe it's an Oshawa, maybe it's a Philly. It's unfortunate, but I think this could be the end of what was an unbelievable career.
Byrne, Cole, Connell, Ecclestone, Jackson. Tough for Benny to kind of slide in there with, Jacko kind of playing the same way that he does. I just don't think Ryan Benesh would want to go to an Oshawa or a Philly at this point in the career. I think he's either going to a championship contender to finally win that elusive NLL championship or bust. I think unfortunately might be the end of the road for Benny, but hopefully someone gives him a shot. He can finally get into, what is he? Just a little bit shy of fourth all time. So we'll wait to see on that one. Final question, Jacob McDonald from Anything Lax. Does Keegan Ball have a chance of winning the MVP this season? Straight up, yes. Absolutely. We all talked about the introduction of Dixon and King and how that would, maybe upset the offense. Well, it took Dixon and King some time to get in the flow, but Keegan Ball has been outstanding since day one of this season. And I absolutely think he'll be in the running for MVP by the time all's said and done this year.
I think there is a chance. I think it is a very, very slim chance.
It's Daubers to win. Or Daubers to lose, essentially.
It's Daubers to lose, but if, let's say, he falls off a cliff, there still is Jeff Teat, who's grabbing his team into the playoffs. I think it's Keegan Ball he is a finalist. He's number 3, but I think those two other have a little bit of a stronger case. But if Ottawa falls off a cliff here, barely makes the playoffs or doesn't make the playoffs, and Dauber kind of comes back down to earth, then I think Keegan Ball's there. I think he is a finalist. I think there's no denying that, especially when you look at the body of work. I just think when you look at true value, like where would the Vancouver Warriors be without Keegan Ball? They definitely wouldn't be as good as a team.
No,
I mean, I just think then now your offense runs a little more through Dixon or runs a little more through King. What happens if you take Jeff Teat off that roster? Last place, maybe?
Yeah. They're close. I think they're more of a bubble team than they are right now. So we'll see.
1,000%.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone chipping into the mailbag this week. Always helps the conversation go a little better and we get to answer your questions. But let's get to our guest this week and have him answer our questions. Our guest on the Off the Crossbar podcast this week, brought to you by the fine folks over at the Goalie Factory. Goalie Factory helps goalies of all ages become complete athletes and improve their game through weekly camps based in Langley, BC. They have elite one-on-one coaching across Lower Mainland and online coaching you can access anywhere. They focus on technical skill, athletic development, and building the mindset it takes to perform at your best. Find Goalie Factory on Instagram at @GoalieFactory_ or visit goaliefactory.ca to book your session today. Randy Mearns didn't know it was coming, but he's happy the call came from GM Dan Carey. He is the new interim head coach of the Rochester Knighthawks, and he joins us this week on the Off the Crossbar podcast.
Get your popcorn ready because something crazy is about to happen.
It was a busy day in the National Lacrosse League as the trade deadline kind of took up most of the day. But it was late in the afternoon on Monday, maybe even into the evening in the East Coast, where Rochester dropped the news. And joining us now is their new interim head coach, Randy Mearns. How are you, Mearnsy?
Yeah, I'm a little bit water, so that's good. I'm trying to hit the ground running. It's been a crazy 34 hours, and life is going one direction. And as you guys probably know, like there's like the Mearns lacrosse podcast, obviously broadcasting, and Danny Carey show on Monday afternoon. While I was actually going to get some B-roll of 3 area high school teams to kind of develop that, and asked me if he was kind of that name, whether or not I would be interested. Like it's the NLL, absolutely, I'd be interested. The best on the planet, and then from there, just kind of went through the afternoon and the evening, and I was for the opportunity and talked it over with my wife and said, hey, let's go get back to Rochester.
Yeah, so I guess like how quickly did the ball get moving? Did you have any wind of it before Dan called you when this move was happening?
Yeah, no crickets for me. It was like I say, I was going to I've done the 219 kind of doing my thing. I got a phone call, reach out. Basically, as all we're all connected a little bit, chit chat, how's the family, how things going. That's really when the ball started rolling. I knew nothing of it. And Dano, I let him obviously for himself, but I think for him was he felt like they wanted to make a change, and he said for him it was like I kind of had you on the radar screen of as he was thinking about it, would you interested in? And that's where we kind of went through for hours, just kind of going back and forth. And what an incredible opportunity, and I'll first kind of say this though, and I love Mike Hayes, and I love Patty too. I play with them. We vied for championships together in the whole bit, and the next day, like first class people, Hazer reached out, shot me text and just said, hey, there's a special group there, obviously it's a gut punch, and I've been through it from a bond puncher standpoint, but he felt like he was in good hands, and he was wished me luck and to do it, but that just showed like the character of a guy like Mike Hayes, and that's just first class in my book.
Was there any hesitation to accept this role and get behind a NLL bench?
Not particularly. I kind of went down the field across the NCAA route, and I love that experience of working with lads and helping them get their degrees, and can you get them to the NLL, or at least for them to do that. And kind of journey. I've had some incredible opportunities when you do have free time, and again the broadcasting and social media, and just kind of getting myself in all these different spaces with the mindset of God, like it would be incredible to actually ever coach in the NLL. Like that was always something that's always there, and when I look at the list of coaches that are in the loop, you start off Saskatchewan, and obviously there's Derek Keenan, and you got Patty Coyle in Colorado, and Shooter, and and all these guys I had the opportunity to either play with or win championships with, and and so it's always kind of been out there, but it was always kind of further away just because obviously I was in the NCAA. And so when Dano asked if I would be interested, like there was no hesitation of being interested to actually join the NLL. Then the question is okay, well, like, can I actually do it? And then that's where, it's kind of a little bit of the soul searching where, I had the opportunity to work with Derek Graham with the Newtown Senior Bees in the summertime. I got to, be around Darius Kilgore and the Seneca War Chiefs all summer. And, we're back in the box. And obviously recently hopped back on with Danny Coates and Lordy and Smallsy and St. Catharines. They go back to the double blue, all within, maybe this process of, moving forward. Maybe I can hop on a team and, in the NLL down the road. And it kind of happened quicker than I thought.
The irony of Canisius and St. Bonaventure's playing yesterday, when all this news
that's pretty
was
trippy.
coming out. Yeah.
Crazy.
Were you at the game?
No, because we had practice last night. It just happened. It was going through the things and, then obviously paperwork and, my objective last night really is, and again, I guess from being a broadcaster, is, you get to see every team play, you're calling the game, the ins and the outs. I'm more of a color guy, so I don't obviously do the, play by play. And, you kind of feel like you have a beat on the players, but, how many offensive designs does Calgary and Troy Cordingley or whoever the offensive coordinators, do they have? Are they all set plays, or are they just initiation plays? Those types of things. And so I feel like I have a very, very good beat on the talent in the NLL, but I haven't, really ran a box lacrosse practice in, 27 years, a little bit in Newtown, but Grammar usually took care of that. But I got to tell you, just to be around the professionalism of the players, the guys at this first practice, the talent level, just the stick work, the athleticism. And I got to call it from afar up in a press box, but to be on the floor, it's oh, this is insane, and how good and how talented these players are, and Hazer, and then we had an opportunity to chat about, he's just Mearnsy, this is this is a really, really special group. And I got to see that last night. My other objective was, really to kind of rekindle, relationships with guys that I know, but really haven't seen. And then for the number of guys that I don't know, just start to kind of build a relationship and kind of join this journey that they're on. So it's been exciting. It'll be a process, but I look forward to, working with the guys and working with the staff. And, it's just an incredible opportunity. And as I said to Hazer, this wasn't on a radar screen for me. And he understood it. I'm like, man, but it was just an opportunity I can't pass up. And he was in that conversation, he was like, no, I get it, man. It's all good. Move it forward, man. Try to take these guys to the NLL championship. And I really appreciated that from him.
So when you look at this team, and you mentioned, from a broadcaster's perspective, you kind of have a wide lens of things. How would you characterize what has worked and what hasn't worked for this Rochester team?
I think it's kind of, I haven't really drilled down into it. That's what I get to do today, watch 11 games. I feel like it's kind of it may be a little bit of inconsistency. I did rewatch the Calgary game just to kind of get a sense, right? And offensively, at least from watching the film, it wasn't like they didn't have really, really good opportunities. They just, you just don't score. And what I kind of came from it, is at least in my mind, at that level, the margin of error of whether you win or whether you lose. I mean, it goes back to the old school, any given Sunday, man. It's an inch, it's a half a step. It really matters if you ran off, if you were on the power play, or if you jogged to the bench, of whether Connor Kirst can get a transition goal on the man down. It's that slim, right? And so as I get to kind of work through this and, have these great conversations with Kyle and Matt, of what worked, and Coatsy and the leadership, it's really more of a function of, okay, well, at least for me is well, what do they need from me? Because it's a collaborative thing. I mean, they're the talent, they're the players, and how do I try to, either inspire, motivate, you know, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's not like I'm coming to Kyle Calais and saying, "Hey, I got 37 new plays. Let's put in." Like, you know, that's not what's going to happen. But I feel it's maybe some inconsistency. You know, are you taking a team lightly? Are we going full tilt all the time, 60 minutes? And you know, I get to kind of analyze that all day as I can kind of get more, you know, wrapped around, you know, the Rochester Knighthawks as a team. The great part about it is like still in the hunt, you know, one game off of like being in a playoff spot. And every game for us is a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here in and out, and you have to take it as such, right? We have to prepare as such. And so, like I say, I'm getting my feet wet. I said to the guys last night, like, you know, I'm going to be learning a lot, but I feel like I'm a pretty quick learner. And, you know, I'm going to be, you know, chatting with, you know, probably 10 of those guys today. You know, hop on the phone, you know, up on a Zoom, you know, just to kind of get to know them. And, you know, I talked to a few guys yesterday that I didn't know. And, you know, one guy's from Wisconsin, and how the hell did he get to Jacksonville? I'm talking about Nathan Capp. Like, how did that process work? And, you know, and where are you living? And now he's got a Canadian girlfriend. So hey, well, why wouldn't you want to do that, right? But you know, you just build the rapport, and I think that's the first thing for me is to build that with the players. You know, there's a solid core there. They got incredible leadership. You know, the talent levels there, offensively, defensively. You know, transition wise. You know, with Hartley and Hutchie in the net. You know, it's all the pieces of the puzzle are there. You know, now it's, you know, I guess for myself as taking on the role of, you know, how do we manage all these pieces of the puzzle to, you know, see if we can, you know, get to the playoffs first and foremost, you know, and try to, you know, win an NLL championship.
I'm sure there will be, and there are many fans in Rochester that remember Randy Mearns as the player, as the champion, as the captain. But there might not be many fans that maybe know Randy Mearns, the coach. What can they expect from you as their new bench boss?
Yeah, I think energy. I think passion. You know, but I'm not like a yeller and a screamer. I think it's like a lot of positive, you know, kind of feedback. It'll be a learning experience to be on the bench. Like, it's going to be pretty trippy. I'm just being honest with you, you know, and I know I'm going to have to, as much as, you know, the players all have to adapt or evolve in terms of our relationship and how I maybe do things. You know, it'll be a first time experience, you know, and I feel that, you know, I'm going to, you know, try to, you know, obviously be inspirational, be motivational, be positive. You know, like anything, it's always the next play, you know, but it's commitment. It's just doing all the little things, you know, to the hardest, you know, to the hardest that you can. Like, it's just grit, like, because the margins of error are so small, you know, and so those will be, you know, a variety of different messages that you just continue to push forward and can, you know, and you know, I'll get with the coaching staff, and obviously, you know, from a lineup standpoint, I've done it from an NCAA, you know, you got 55 guys, and so I'm learning that whole kind of, well, how do you move a guy from the practice roster onto the active roster? Like, I'm a broadcaster. I don't know any of that stuff, you know, so I'll get educated, you know, on that. You know, so it'll be exciting. It'll be new for everybody. And hopefully we can put this thing together in short order, and hopefully we can have success in Vegas.
Do you feel any pressure to come into this job with, you know, a team that had playoff and championship aspirations? It's kind of going the wrong way right now.
I think there's pressure in everything, you know, that you kind of go through. I've been just on a hop, you know, for the last like 30 hours that I don't know if I've really felt it yet, if there is, but I know that there will be. Like, shit, I got to go buy 3 suits. Like, I'm watching Sean Williams on the sidelines. I'm watching these dudes, man. Like, dudes are looking good. You know, I got to go to the drive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I got to work. You know, like I give you a quick, like a simple one. I'm like, I asked Dan Carey this. I said, so like, do the referees before the game, do they give me a red flag, or do I have to go buy my own?
Do I have to have my own?
Right? Or do I got to make one, out of a handkerchief and throw, old school, we used to do that, throw some rocks in it and throw it at your buddies, and wrap it up. Like, how's that work? And again, it's like, but it's a lot of things, it's when you go through it, it's, with, I got a number of emails today, from the NLL, Brian Lemon, and you got to catch the speed up on this and on this and on this and on this. And I've never done that before. Dano shot me the rule book. He says, hey, when you got some time, read this. Now I feel like I kind of got a good beat on, the rules, but truthfully, I'm not sure of what's 100% reviewable if you throw a red flag.
Nobody
don't want to screw that shit up.
You're
right on
there.
national TV. That would be bad.
Yeah.
Learning the technology on the bench.
Right.
And how does that work? Do you get all 6 camera angles, or is there one camera angle, or and so this is going to be like a big learning curve where I'm just trying to find out as much information, that I can while I'm just kind of just going through it and I feel like my head's above water, and I feel like I'm kind of coming out of the water now that I'm kind of reading things and doing things and communicating and so I feel like here in the next 24 hours I'll feel like I'll be somewhat kind of stable on land, and then I'll be able to kind of collect the thoughts and then we'll move this thing forward.
In your chats, and you mentioned obviously the 2 other coordinators that will be staying on the bench with you. Just in your conversations at practice or what you've had, how much, obviously I think you're going to be leaning on them heavily, but just overall impressions on 2 pretty young guys in a pretty impressive position at their point in their careers.
Yeah. When I came in, I was really, really impressed. We met before practice, we, shooting the breeze. And again, I'm just kind of getting out. Well, I'll give you a quick story, cause these are just things that happen and it's kind of relevant. So through a lot of this, a lot of people, it's just it's just boom. Hey, congrats, all that fun stuff. And I'm appreciative of everything. And it means a ton. But Dauber had reached out, to give the congratulations, and he called and that was awesome. And the interesting part about that is my first thing that I said to him is okay, well, I guess you can't come on my podcast that I was going to start, because that would be bad, right? That would be bad. And so anyway, we're shooting the breeze about it. And he's like, yeah, but you remember Matt, right? And I'm kind of okay, well, we met on a Zoom, and he's like, no, he played at Quinnipiac. We played against him. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Okay. All right. That's the connection, that whole bit. But I got to tell you, these guys were, I was really, really impressed, from the film, the highlights that they had kind of busted out, that they kind of showed me, hey, let's show this, let's show that little, just to their prep, of practice and what the drills are, and then communicating that, to the players. Hey, here's what I feel. Here's what we seen, what Vegas does, Mitch Jones. I mean, it's, and Kluche, and, then you got that right-hand side, and maybe we should fundamentally do this. What's your thoughts? Hey, that sounds good. Let's go do it. It was pretty impressive, and, so what we're going to go through the journey here, and really try to, build this, and Dan and I, I talked is it going and finding another guy, and what's that kind of metric? And, right now I feel there's a lot of change that just happened, and let's just see what this looks like getting through Las Vegas, and then we'll start to determine from there. But they're young guys. The amount of work that they do and that they put in, and again, I've only been interacting with them for 30 hours, but they have regular jobs, kind of, so to speak, but hey, on call, and we're going back and forth, and it's been pretty impressive.
You guys have 7 games left. 5 of them are on the road, so you're not getting a lot of home cooking. But is maybe a blessing in disguise that you can just kind of get away from things, be on the road with the fellas, and kind of build something new here.
Yeah, I think so. At least, when I thought, I actually did think about that. Like, okay, well, at least we're going to be in Vegas, and I feel like that's a good thing. Like it was just kind of even interesting, before that, but like even at practice yesterday, the guys are getting the rehab, getting stretched, you kind of doing the thing where as we were pulling in, you got to stop off at Timmy Ho's, right? You got to have your coffee, and as we pulled in, all of a sudden there's Rylan Reese and Pizzino and Brad Gillies and a few other guys, and it's the first time that I'm seeing them live, like in a long time, at least the guys that I know. And I'm like, oh, okay. Question: is this like the stop since we practiced in Brampton? Like, is this the place, right? and they kind of chuckled about it, but like for me, like again, that's just kind of building some camaraderie. We're all going through this thing, so I feel getting out to Vegas, like we're all going to have this shared experience. Maybe not with any pressure at being at home, kind of going through this change. And I know for me, as I thought through it, I felt like this is going to be great. This is going to allow me to really, in as quickly as that I can, of like really try to get to know these guys and, what they're about and what their lives are about and what this game means to them, all those things. And so maybe it's fortunate that we are on the road in that regard.
Quick question. Yeah, I know we kind of said, did you hear anything about this move coming? Like, was there any inklings? But did the move happen before the end of the trade deadline, or did it happen after? And I asked because, like, if it happened before, did you have any conversations with Dan Carey, the GM, about the Blaze trade, or was that after?
Well, that's a great question, right? You're a great question, guy. Like you hit him, Teddy. I got to tell you, right? So this is the thing. So it's probably I don't know. I like I said, I was going to these 3 area high schools, right? Time St. Joe's and St. Francis and Nichols to get B-roll to build clientele and all this other stuff, right? And at about 5:00, I got to the first place. I got some B-roll to do some social media. And I'm like, I talked with my wife, talked with Dano again. And it was like, yep, are we doing it? Okay. Left immediately there, straight back to Ellicottville. Let's start busting out rosters and doing the thing. And then it was about 7:30, 8:00 that night. I think it was right around there, but it was where all of a sudden, like we had Blaze Reardon. Like I didn't know. Like he was just there, so I don't know, but I feel like it's a really, really great pickup, right? It's Blaze coming back home to Fairport. He's a hometown hero. Sure. PLL, NLL, like does he got a shot of playing on Team USA Olympics? All that fun stuff. Goaltender can play lefty, and I feel like that's a good like kind of energy boost, and in a trade I feel like Dano wanted to make to kind of shore up the offensive side. But yeah, no, we didn't communicate really on anything. I think he had a lot of things on his plate and one hiring a new coach was part of it. But so we got to honor Blaze yesterday at practice and gave him his jersey and here we go and welcome aboard and so this is going to be an exciting adventure and we're just, I always look at things like we're just on this journey, and how do we continue to evolve and get better every day. You got to have bounces. Bounces got to fall your way. You guys know this. Got to have bounces. Got to have solid goaltending, right? Got to have solid goaltending. You got to be able to transition the ball. You got to communicate on D. You got to be gritty on the loose balls. You got to be gritty getting off the floor. Like that half a second, you don't know if it counts or not. So that's why you never make sure. You always make sure it counts. Those types of things. You share the ball offensively, and what talent offensively. Like I mean, especially at the beginning of your being a broadcaster, is like you got McConvey and Fields and you got Ryan Smith. They brought in Zeddy. You got Kyle Waters. I looked at Kyle Waters yesterday. I hadn't seen him. Shit, I don't even know. Maybe I don't even know 5 years, 6 years, because I think he was at Detroit, and we would always game plan against him. I mean, he's a monster, man. Like he's like 6'5", like 245, like he's huge, and you see it from up top, Pat and Teddy. You see it, but like man, like you get on the like these guys are monsters, and the banging that goes on, offensively and defensively, and again, we're all guys that played the sport and all that fun stuff. But in practice, we did a little bit of that, because you kind of got to get that in. You cannot like get away from it. Oh, yeah. And I'm watching like, man, these are collisions. These are collisions, and but so super excited about, right. And then, then you got Hogger, and again, it's not like I'm not trying to like leave, McCauley, and now you brought him Blaze, and and do you go 4 righties and 3 lefties, and so these are all the kind of great conversations that we get to kind of have, because the talent level, the players are all there, and quite honestly, as they all are on every NLL team. Mm-hmm. Like, to make this league, you have to be elite. Yeah. And everybody's got guys, and then you hope, hey, you know what, don't get into the injury bug, because that can like settle, Sally a season, a variety of these things that can all happen during this, this run, this journey to try to win a championship. I talk with the athletic training staff, relatively speaking, pretty healthy. Okay, that's a good thing. Motivation to just know that, like, it's not like we're in the, like, you're in the playoff hunt. We're in the playoff hunt. Like, we're 1 game away. If you flip that last game, you're tied for 7th. Yeah. So all is not lost. And then at the end of the day is you just got to make the playoffs. Now, like, because anything can happen in the playoffs, right? So there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. There's the personnel and the players and the talent and the grit to do it. And I guess my role is just to try to develop that pathway to, allow our guys to go live their dreams, man. That's just winning, man. Like, can we get Danny Coates a ring? The guy's been battling forever, and he's the captain. And whatever motivation anybody has, it's kind of, we always talk about what's your why, like, and then collectively, can we continue just to collectively push it forward, ride the ebbs, ride the flows, but move it forward, and so it's just an exciting opportunity that I cannot, let go.
And on that note, you mentioned Dan Coates. You already talked about Dan Carey. Is it surreal that now your new boss is a former player you coached, and your new captain is a former player you coached?
It's pretty. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about that, yeah, that's pretty true. It's kind of funny because a guy named Bob Leary reached out. He's the Herkimer coach, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to congratulate you. Oh, and hey, Dano, your guy, your boss, Danny Carey, your boss he was a Herkimer grad." And I'm like, "No, I remember, because I recruited him out of Herkimer to come to the and it's kind of surreal, because as time kind of passes, but I think what we all try to do, though, is as we're all going through this journey of the people that you interact with, the people that you're around, and people coming in, come in and out of your lives, and some are the stable guy. But if you're always, whenever you get a chance, you reach out to somebody. I try to do that, every day. Like, I haven't talked to this person, give them a shout, stay connected, and for me, I try to do it more via phone, or, because I'm more of a people guy. Like, it's not like a text kind of thing. And I guess where I'm going with this is like, I feel like, God, like, how many years ago was that? In my mind, I'm like, Canisius, I'm like, okay, Danny, God, like, all right, like, that's like 23 years ago, but we've been connected,
right,
because of this sport for the last 23 years. Obviously, you had the opportunity to step in for Danny Carey with the U20s, which is an absolutely incredible experience. And Teddy Jenner, by the way, what a call. Come on. It doesn't get any better than that. Oh, nice. It does not get any better than that. Because kudos to you. You guys are like legit. And then obviously with Danny Coates, kind of coaching him, and some Team Canada, stuff, and as he's kind of gone through his journey, and we had chatted, in late fall, we got the opportunity to go golfing with a couple of other Canisius guys, and and we started talking about St. Catharines and, you know, who would be interested in this, that, and the other thing. And I just said like, hey, like I just felt like you should apply for that. Like, you're from St. Catharines, you're Danny coach, you're the captain. Maybe that's a good opportunity. And so obviously he got the job, and then he reached out and he's like, oh, hey, okay. So I'm going to be it, but like, I want you aboard. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. Right. And again, like, and I quite honestly, like, I'm an assistant coach. You got Corey Small. He's the OC. Dylan, or not, Ian Lord. Sorry. Ian Lord is the defensive coordinator coach. He's running it. And I don't know, man, I'll just kind of come and just, do my thing, I guess. But, maybe provide some guidance. And so it's super exciting, but, cause it's just all these spaces in lacrosse, and you guys know this, man, like, and there's the NLL and there's all of it. Like, it just connects us and binds us, and and we just continue to push it forward. It's going to the Olympics, as you guys all well know. We talk about like, and I still feel like somehow it's just still at its infancy. Like,
yeah. One last one before we let you go. Couple weeks from now, April 11th, you guys will head to Banditland to take on the Buffalo Bandits. Are you going to give the silent treatment to John Gertler?
Am I going to give the silent? Well, so that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, like, he's going to be calling you midweek for coaches calls. You got to kind of give him some insight. Like,
yeah. You know what? I mean, I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I'm glad you guys got to hit me like the list of like 100 questions you got. I got to think about stuff, man. I did actually. I went through this, right, and in my mind a little bit, because I'm like, so a lot of guys, right? You're connected, like a Kersey and accordingly, and like just like the whole gamut. Hey, Mearns, congrats, welcome to the league. Hey, good luck. Hope you succeed. We'll see you on the floor, whatever. And I'm like, okay, now, I would connect with Mike and Kersey like once every month because I recruited his son Carter, St. Paul. We was shooting the breeze, the NLL, Halifax, and a little bit. And then in my brain now, since I'm on this, like, am I not allowed to talk to him? You know what I mean? Like, is there like, no, I'm not talking to you because like we're competitors now, or is it friendly chit chat, but we're not talking about X's and O's in the game, right? Yeah. And so I was telling some of the guys last night, that maybe did not know, because it was my first time in the barn in like, I don't know, Teddy Pat, like 20-25 years, carpet and the whole bit. And so it was at the end of practice, and guys kind of have a little bit of a light shoot around on the goalies and that type of thing. And I was saying to a few of the guys, I'm like, oh my God, look up there. There's still the two banners, 92 and 93. Right on that team was Troy Cordingley, Pat Coyle, Jimmy Veltman, Teddy Dowling. You just kind of go through the lineup. Tavares, Darius Kilgore, Richie Kilgore, like all these guys that were either coaches or former coaches in the NLL that helped kind of build it. And I'm kind of giving this lore a little bit. And I said, but the funniest part about it is it's in OT, and I think it's game 7, and it's cement, and there's rosin all over the floor, and there's a shot, and Cordingley picks up the rebound and does a little twister far pipe, and we win. And he goes in the corner and he stands, Troy, and he's got his hands up, and we all come flying out of the bench. You know how it is. Holy shit, we just friggin' won. And as we're approaching him, he starts running down the other side so he could be like Pele, like, hey, follow me.
Yeah.
Because I did it. And then we celebrated, right? And so those are the funny stories that you just, you go back, and it's just like yesterday, man. Like, God, and that's 34 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it's a new chapter in the career of Randy Mearns, from player to scout to coach to broadcaster, and now a National Lacrosse League coach again. Mearnsy, so happy for you, my friend. This is a great honor and a great chance to do some incredible things with the Knighthawks. Good luck with all your film. If you have any questions about broadcast, we can help you with that. And safe travels to Vegas. Good luck, and we'll catch up soon.
Awesome. Hey, appreciate your time. Thanks, Teddy. Thanks, Pat. Keep doing what you guys are doing. You're building it, and the broadcasts have never been better, man. Keep doing it.
Appreciate it, Mearnsy.
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Great stuff from Mearnsy as always. He's so kind of carefree and relaxed. Like we kind of asked him about, coaching style, and he's a little different than Hazer and just how he kind of carries himself. But when push comes to shove, Mearnsy's going to get the best out of his players.
Absolutely. There's no denying. And you say carefree and low stress. I think this group could use a little bit of that. I feel like it's very uptight right now with that group, and the pressure is mounting, and he's going to come in and he's going to have that laid back style of coaching. But he said it's laid back, but it's energy, and it is enthusiasm, exuding through him. And that's infectious. And when your head coach or your leaders are enthusiastic, it is very infectious, and it can cause ripple effects throughout the entire locker room. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do. He's very honest with, how much he's going to rely on his leaders, how much he's going to rely on his coaches, and how he still needs to get his feet wet. And I appreciate all the candidness. It'd be very easy for him to come on and say he's got this plan here and yada yada, but that's Mearnsy, man, and he tells you how it is, and he does not pull any punches. So I think that is going to really help. And kudos to Hazen. Kudos to Mike Hazen to have that conversation with Mearnsy after being, after losing your job, to have the respect. And that just goes to show you the respect he has for Mearns, but also more importantly, the respect and love that he has for those guys in the locker room, that he doesn't want to see them crash and burn. Maybe there's a part in the back of his head that's human nature, but he wants to see those players succeed to the best of their abilities. He doesn't want that to crash up and blow in their face. So the fact that he was able to sit down and have that conversation over the phone with Mearnsy to kind of give him the lay of the land, I could not have more respect for Hazer after hearing that.
Yeah, that is the huge respect thing. Former teammates, guys who have worked together at many different levels. And that's a guy that has swallowed the bitterness pill right away and understood that there's still great things ahead for this organization, and he wants to help, a guy that he's very familiar with have success, and he doesn't want to sandbag or throw anybody under the bus. So yeah, just a huge respect move there by Mike Hazen. Let's get to week 16 of the National Lacrosse League. It is a busy one, and it starts with your call on Friday night out there in Halifax. Mackie Jenner will be doing play-by-play again with you on the side, and Ashley Dawkin between the benches. But Toronto at Halifax, I know you've been getting through the calls right now. For this Halifax team, every game right now is a playoff game.
It's been playoffs since their game against Calgary. That was the mindset that they came into that game with, and they've rolled through now, 14 and 13 goals for respectively. No Randy Stotts certainly hurts this group. There's no denying that, but Clark Peterson has put this team on his shoulders, and what we've seen from him over the last two games, that is the Clark Peterson that we saw over the last couple of years, where he's had back-to-back 100-point seasons. He looks more assertive, he's dangerous, he's creative, he's patient, but when he gets the opportunity, he's a cold-blooded killer. And I think if the offense can revolve around him, it alleviates a little more pressure on some of the other guys on that floor, because when he was struggling, and Randy Stotts struggling by their standards, let's also say, when they were struggling, it felt like a lot of the other guys around them were then gripping the stick a little bit too hard. I cannot stress how great Stephen Keogh has been to this lineup on and off the floor, but more importantly on the floor last game. I think things are starting to come together for Halifax. I'm not ready to say they're ready to just roll right into the playoffs. They still have a very difficult road ahead of them. I don't think this is necessarily must-win territory, but if you drop this one, you've got next to no room for error the rest of the way.
When you spoke with the Toronto guys, obviously they were confident and happy with the win coming off of the Vancouver game. Is this team that's kind of feeling themselves right now?
Full transparency, haven't had the conversations
Oh,
with
you're
them
not there yet?
That's later this evening. But man, you were around them. You saw it. How could they not be? And I want to pose something to you. And while I do that, I want to go back and check my notes. I feel like I had this as a hot take somewhere. But could anyone and Dan Dawson and Matt Sawyer, I'll ask them, but has anyone could have predicted how good Challen Rogers has been offensively over the last 6 games?
No, but maybe. We've all been pining for front door Challen for the last few years, knowing how good he was. But he's got hat tricks in 5 of his last 6 games or something like that. He's now set a season high for goals in one season. He's leading this team at all aspects of why he's the leader and the captain of this group. He's showing that he can be versatile. Like, we all knew he had this in him, but finally getting him to see front door Chow has been phenomenal. I think they probably did expect this from him. They're not, expecting him to be a 50 goal guy, but I think he was, definitely put in this position to be the leader of the offense. I think maybe more importantly, did they expect to have this kind of year from Mark Matthews? Like, that's a guy that has found the fountain of youth again after shoulder surgery. And it has allowed Challen Rogers to be even more successful because he has a true ball distributor from the other side. So I think they expected this from Chow. I think they knew what they had in him, playing him out the front door. But I think it's the collective, experience and rise of Mark Matthews, the rookies of Kirst and Hiltz and English and Hugh Kelleher coming in and playing. Like, they're getting scoring from everybody. Now Nick Rowlett scoring off draws. So this is a team that is, and now Rosie's back. Like, this is a team that I would be scared to be playing down the stretch, despite how injured they are. This is a team that's firing on all cylinders. So did they expect Challen to be this good? I would have to say yes, they did. That's going to be a fun game on Friday to kick things off. A half hour later, it's Philadelphia at Oshawa. Again, 2 teams at the bottom of the standings. We'll continue to say that Philadelphia has the more momentum to lose this game, trying to get that first overall pick. But, these are 2 teams that are still playing some exciting lacrosse despite the records.
Well, look at the last 2 games that Oshawa have played, an overtime thriller, and then a game where they almost let it slip between their fingers again. It's first game back at home in, let's see, almost exactly a month.
Yeah.
So I know people, despite what's, the record is, I'm out in this area. I hear people talk. I was at the arena yesterday for practice in Pickering, and people were wearing Firewolves hats. People were talking about the game. People are excited about it, and they're still in the honeymoon phase where, a lost season this year, I don't think is going to do anything. A lost season next year might get a little bit salty. So I think it is paramount that this group, because they have no first round draft pick, they have no reason to tank and lose every game. It's so important for them to give that fan base something to cheer for, allow them to make sure that they want to come back next year and get season tickets, but also this coaching staff. Like, if they can, put on a run here, I think ownership maybe would give them another opportunity here. But if they fizzle down the stretch, I mean, we could be talking about another firing come the end of the year and a completely new group coming in here.
Mike Hazen to Oshawa, Mike Hazen to Philadelphia. Who knows? Maybe Mike Hazen's in the stands watching this game, scouting both teams for next year. I'm probably sure Mike Hazen's going to be far away from the lacrosse rink for the next few weeks. But, for Philadelphia, the first time in a long time, no Joe Rez, no Blaze Reardon. It'll be a new look Philadelphia team. So Keep your eye on that game because it's going to be a very interesting one. The final game on Friday, Colorado at Buffalo. We know how much rivalry and how much bad blood there is between these two teams. This should be a fantastic lacrosse game.
I know my game at 6:00 Eastern is technically the game of the week, but this is a game that you have to keep your eyes peeled on. A rematch of the back-to-back finals. It's a couple seasons ago. Both teams, I think you could say, desperate for wins. I think Colorado was very pissed off with the way that they played last game. You look at them; they've lost 2 of their last 3. The last thing they want to do is 3 of their last 4. This is where you're supposed to be building momentum. They're going to have at least probably one new fresh face in that lineup. It's definitely you're not hitting the panic button here by any stretch of imagination if you lose, but this is where you lose ground in that race for first place by dropping a game here. So big opportunity for both sides. I can't wait to see Joe Rez back in a Buffalo uniform, seeing him in a 2-man game with Dane Smith or Madog and Anakoke or, Bucky. Like I think, and I talked to someone within the league who has coached Joe Rezateritz, and he told me when that trade happened that this is going to revitalize him. And I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about for the next few seasons. Like this could extend his career by quite some time.
Yeah, that's a scary thought, considering he's 36 and he's put up 100 points 3 of the last 4 years. He was close back in 2024. So keep your eye on that one as Friday night's action in the NLL comes to a close. You think that might be the game of the week, despite Toronto and Halifax being on TSN, but kicking things off on Saturday, Vancouver at Georgia. This for me has all the writings on the wall for being the game of the week. 2 teams that are battling, try to get 1 home floor advantage, 2 home floor road in that first place number 1 seed. Vancouver coming off that tough loss to Toronto. Georgia had the week off. This should be a very entertaining lacrosse game between 2 teams who play a high-level, fast-paced game of lacrosse.
Oh, yeah. And there's a chance that this could be an entertaining, high, fast, high intensity, low event game because of how good the defenses and the goaltenders are.
Yeah.
I think the line set at CoolBet right now is at like 20.5.
Oh boy.
That just goes to speak to how good these goaltenders are. And you talked about how Vancouver coming off a loss and with Georgia coming off a bye. Georgia's coming off a bye off of a very, very disappointing loss against Philadelphia, where they only put up 5 goals. These are 2 salty teams that are going to want to get back on the saddle. Unfortunately for them, there can only be one winner.
That's game 1 on Saturday. Game 2, Ottawa at Calgary. And the funny thing about this game is, Ottawa would love to beat Calgary to improve their draft stock.
It's a double win for them, isn't it? I mean, I didn't even think of that, but listen, it's crazy to say that after a 4-game winning streak, after holding Colorado to 5 goals, after that convincing victory, to me, this is the game that I actually think that it proves that Ottawa is different.
Okay.
That this isn't the Riptide just in different jerseys. Because what the Riptide used to do after going on a run, I mean by a run, I think they've only won 3 straight. I think they set a new record for winning streak. But in years past, they've done this before where they've looked like world beaters and they've come up with the big victories. It's the games that they should win is where they drop one. And that is what I'm looking for this group. Do not have the letdown game. Do not have the emotional letdown. Do not have a game where you need to have it be the one that you drop. This is a big point. I'm sure Dan McRae in that locker room is challenging these guys to say, keep that level of intensity, keep that level of execution that you had in the other game. Do not disrespect your opponent. This is going to be a dogfight, and they need to play for a full 60.
and even in that, the 10-5 win over Colorado last week, they still had, they went on a massive run to end that game, scoring the final 7 goals. You get a natural hat trick from Jeff T. This is still a team that is based on runs, whether it's good or bad. They need to find, and Dan McRae said it from the first interview we had with him. He still continues to preach it, is consistency. And this is a team that just is still trying to find their consistency. And they're going up against a team in Calgary that really has nothing to lose except continuing to build for the future. So if Ottawa's not prepared and ready for this game, they could get behind the 8 ball pretty quick and have to go on one of those runs. And at some point in time, you're going to just run out of runs. So I expect Ottawa to come out firing early and often in this game. But it'll be interesting to see if Aiden Walsh can continue the play that he had last week in that big win for the Calgary Roughnecks. Later on Saturday, San Diego taking on the Saskatchewan Rush. Speaking of the Rush, shout out to our boy Cody Jansen, a brand new owner of a Macedonian hockey team. We're going to have to delve deeper into that, but that is just the news I didn't expect. But a Seals team and a Rush team that didn't make any moves at the deadline. 2 teams that have obviously very much confidence in their group, but one at the top of the standings and one floundering in the middle.
Yeah, shout out the Macedonian Reggie Dunlop, aka Cody Jansen, player, coach, owner. This is a sneaky, massive game as well, to be quite honest. San Diego, well, let's not forget that disastrous of a weekend where they dropped both games to 2 contenders, and all of a sudden, instead of being at the top of the standings or near the top of the standings, now you're battling to be in that bubble. And then on the flip side, Saskatchewan, they're coming off a disastrous weekend as well. 2 overtime losses in Western New York, a blip on the radar, probably in their mindset, but maybe a little dose of adversity might not be the worst thing for these guys. And I think maybe they use that as motivation. They use the bye week to rest up, get a little healthier. I know there were some rumblings that Frank Scigliano might be dealing with a little something right now as well. So I'm excited to see how they come out. I'm excited to see, that full 60 effort from both sides. And again, this is sneaky. One of the top games of the weekend for sure.
And then add in the final game of the weekend, Rochester at Las Vegas, the debut of Randy Mearns, the head coach of this team. But you're also going up against, a Vegas team that is clicking at their heels. Rochester at 5-6, sitting in 9th, just on the outside looking in. Vegas 4-7. They've lost 4 straight, but they've been pretty much in most of those games. They're trying to find a couple more wins to get themselves into a playoff hunt. This is do or die for the Las Vegas Desert Dogs.
It is. It really is. There's truly no room for error. And we talked about it on our broadcast about the dire situation that you have with Halifax and that you have with Las Vegas. And I kind of said, listen, Las Vegas' schedule is pretty difficult, but the way that they have something that some other teams don't have right now is the home and homes. They have a little more fate in their hands, because if you can knock off Rochester in a couple of games, or, even if you split there, you're feeling a little bit better. You can't go 0-2. You cannot go 0-2. You have to at least minimum split. You're probably wanting the 2. And on the flip side, when it goes with Rochester, actually just looking at their schedule, they're capped with a home and home as well. So they've got 2 against Las Vegas, then a couple games, and then they end up with 2 games against Georgia. So an even more difficult opponent down the stretch. So we hear it all the time that, playoffs start now. We have this playoff mentality. For some of these teams, it really is playoff mentality. And you're in let's say a 5-game series, and you have to go 3-2. Some of these are in a best of 2 of 3. Some of them are, it's where March Madness has started, and it's you got to keep winning until you don't, and it's single elimination. I think Vegas is pretty darn close to single elimination time.
Yeah, and we mentioned it with Mearns. Rochester, 5 of their 7 games on the road, so not a lot of 5-8-5 home cooking coming up for the Knighthawks down the stretch. If the playoffs did start today, it'd be Saskatchewan and San Diego. Colorado versus Buffalo, Vancouver versus Toronto, Georgia versus Ottawa in the first round. I would take that all day and twice on Sundays. But that is the way Week 16 in the National Lacrosse League, 3 games Friday, 3 games Saturday, and 1 game on Sunday. All games available on ESPN+, TSN+, and NLL+, and of course, Toronto Halifax on TSN. Time to check in with the Polar Bears.
Time now for Box Bets, your source for all the lines, odds, and props from across the world of lacrosse. Brought to you by CoolBet.com. Stay cool, bet responsibly.
Hey, we're having a good day, lads. And we're still in the mix, baby.
All right, Patty, you had control of the conch last week. How did we do?
Did not win. We
Okay,
did not win.
That happens. We're struggling. We're on the struggle bus. But what can we do for the fans this week to get them rejuvenated?
Well, last week we had what? Colorado, they lost. Vancouver, they lost. Rochester, they lost. Halifax, they won. Literally only one of our games won in our parlay. I don't think we came close when it came to what we were looking for on our point parlay. I think maybe it was Ball who was the only one who cashed in there. So what I'm going to do here, Teddy, I'm going to give you the controls because I went 0-2 and I was not even close.
Okay. So we're going to skip. We'll do one Friday game. Let's do one Friday game.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Colorado plus 1.5 against the Buffalo Bandits.
Okay.
I'm going to go over 20.5 Vancouver and Georgia. As much as I love both goaltenders, I still think we're going to get some goals in that one. And give me Ottawa to win. Straight up on the money line.
Okay.
And I'll dip into the Sunday game for a little Sunday sweat. And I will take Vegas plus 1.5.
Okay. Vegas plus 1.5. What is that? Did you
That's plus 875.
Plus 875. Okay. All right, you're hearing and seeing behind the curtain here, folks, how it's done. So, Polar Bears, this information is being sent off, and by the time you're listening to this in your ears, you'll have your parlay up in the exclusives tab. You'll be able to find all the other exclusives going on there as well. But make sure scroll to the bottom, find OTCB, you find Teddy's game there, and you know what? Maybe I'll put a prop parlay together.
Yeah, you deserve to put a prop parlay.
You know what?
You deserve a better. Yeah,
I'll put a prop parlay together. How about that, folks?
I appreciate you. If it's your first time, head over to coolbet.com. When you register, type in all your pertinent information at the bottom. Will be a place for a promo code. Type in OTCB, and the Polar Bears will match your first deposit up to $200 to give you a few extra Polar bucks to play along. And of course, so much more going on over at Coolbet. Of course, it's the Players Championship on the PGA Tour. March Madness is getting going in a couple weeks, so you can get in all the fun of that. NHL, NBA, WBC. Man, if you had Italy on the money line yesterday at the WBC, I'm not even sure what that would have cashed, but tons of stuff going on over there with the Polar Bears. Don't forget, not just sports. You can play the casino, you can play poker. The exclusives are there, and bets on bets still going live, Patty.
Yes, so if you want to win your way for a trip to Toronto to see the Blue Jays, every time you bet on the World Baseball Classic, and you still have time, folks, the final game is on March 17th, St. Paddy's Day, so test your luck out for every $25 that you spend at Coolbet on the WBC Classic. You will get a raffle ticket towards winning that prize. Doesn't matter if you spend $25 on one ticket, or you accumulate all your tickets up to 25, or you bet $50, That's 2 tickets right there. So for every $25 spent, that gives you a raffle ticket towards it. So gives you your travel, your hotel, 2 game tickets, plus a friend coming with you as well. So go to CoolBet, hit the promotions tab. You can check out all the information there, or just go to CoolBet, all our social media. The information will be there.
Shout out to Randy Mearns for joining us this week on the show. I wanted to go into the Six Nations thing. I have some thoughts on what's going on in Major Series lacrosse and all the trades that they're making and building this gigantic super team. I'll just say this. Six Nations doesn't give a shit about draft picks because they get all their protected players from the nation, right? They can protect their own homegrown future stars. They don't care about first round picks, second round picks, because they know that they're just going to be giving teams bags of money and players bags of money just to come and play. The CLA needs to figure out some sort of cap of something, some way to stop this from happening, because no one will be able to beat Six Nations for the coming years on years on years, because they're happy to give up first round draft picks to all these other teams because they know they have the ability to just say, hey, we want this guy, and they can make it happen. So that's for later on in the year when we get to summer ball. But again, I had so many people saying, like, what the hell is going on? How does this trade A, make sense, B, even happen? And why do teams keep trading with Six Nations? Well, it's because they don't care. They're happy to continue to do things their way. And until the CLA or the MSL or somebody says, hey, we need to stop this, they're just going to keep on doing it.
I'll say this. There is more of a likelihood that we see a rule in place that professional players can no longer play, or that there is some sort of cap on professional players before there is anything else that stops it.
Yeah, I agree. So, I know it's like Senior B is doing it. They put a 3 pro rule in, or maybe it's a 5 pro rule in. I wonder if there will, and I agree with that. I think that will happen before any luxury tax or salary cap comes into Canadian summer ball. But I'd be interested to see how soon that rule comes into play in senior lacrosse, because it would change the complete landscape of everything.
I think it's pertinent, and it's on the NLL's salaries to increase so these players make enough money where they can turn down the money that they are being offered in the summer. I can tell you, I've had conversations with a lot of folks around the league in different positions, and they are noticing there is a toll being taken on a lot of these players during the summer, and they would much prefer those guys not playing. They understand the history. They understand the money. They understand all this. I think we're going to get to a point where the players make enough. They don't have to play in the summer, and maybe it's not no players, because let's be honest, for a first-year rookie who just completed his first year in the league, you probably want him still playing in the summer. You probably want him to get his reps in. You want those guys to get your reps in. So I don't have the answers. I don't know, Teddy, if you have the answers, but there's got to be something in a place that will happen eventually, but it's not happening until something is in place. And until that's in place, Six Nations is just going to keep doing it, and no one's going to stop them. And if I had the money to do it, and if I was in their position, I'd do it too. I'd do it too.
7 games in week 16. It all starts Friday night out in Halifax. Again, all games on NLL Plus, TSN Plus, ESPN Plus, and TSN Linear for that very first game on Friday. Shout out Randy Mearns. Congratulations to Randy Mearns. Looking forward to him in his brand new suit this weekend. And shout out to all of our fans for tuning in and listen each and every week. He's Pat Gregor. Find him at P Greggy. I'm at Teddy Jenner. The show at OTCB_podcast, or on the Instas at OTCB Podcast. Don't forget, give our friends over at the Goalie Factory a follow, or visit them at goaliefactory.ca. Enjoy the games this weekend, everybody. If you do go to a game, take a friend. If you take a friend, take 2, and buy them a beer. Lacrosse, friends, beer, the perfect trifecta on the march to May. Until we speak again, stay safe and be excellent to each other.